Before I get on to my story, I would like to read to you from Steve Hassan's first book, Releasing the Bonds. Steve Hassan was a Moonie in the 70s and became a counselor, cult expert and author. This particular passage I'm going to read introduces us to brainwashing, mind control and the study of it by some great American psychiatrists. Mind control or brainwashing. The term brainwashing, coined in 1951 by journalist Edward Hunter, is often used as a synonym for mind control. Hunter translated the word from the Chinese Sinao, Welsh brain, to describe the process by which Americans captured in the Korean War could suddenly reverse their allegiance and confess to fictional war crimes. How was it possible that weeks after being captured, trained military personnel would confess to crimes they never committed, be content in their incarceration, and adopt entirely new belief systems? In the 1950s, military psychologist and psychiatrist Margaret Singer, Robert Lifton, Louis West, and Edgar Schein were sent to research thought reform and devise ways to protect soldiers from it in the future. Like Lifton, Edgar Schein turned to the brainwashing programs in China. His book, Coercive Persuasion, which he based on interviews with former American prisoners, mirrored Lifton's thoughts that physical coercion seemed to be an important feature of brainwashing. However, Lifton later came to believe that thought reform could in fact be accomplished without physical coercion or violence. As senior psychologist at Walter Reed Army Hospital in the 1950s, Margaret Singer studied the effects of thought reform on Korean war prisoners. Singer, who has gone on to pioneer work in the fields of cult mind control, summarizes 50 years of her work on thought reform processes in her book Cults in Our Midst. For me, some of the key differences between brainwashing and mind control or thought reform are as follows. The term brainwashing is often associated with people's minds with overtly coercive behaviors, exemplified by the image of a prisoner at the hands of abusive jailers. At the beginning of a brainwashing process, the subject looks at the agents of influence as the enemy and is forced to comply with them. With mind control, the agents of influence are viewed as friends or mentors, which cause people to lower their defenses, making them more vulnerable to manipulation. The key to mind control's success lies in its subtlety, the way it promotes the illusion of control. The individual believes he's making his own choices, when in fact he has been socially influenced to disconnect his own critical mind and decision-making capacity. In other words, he believes that he has freely chosen to surrender his free will to God or to a leader or ideology. Free will to God or to a leader or ideology. When one steps back and objectively evaluates the vast amount of social influence used to get him to surrender, the degree of manipulation becomes very obvious. The TT go to festivals, concerts and other events where they set up their cafes. With a crew of 10 to 35 people, they serve good quality fast food. Their temporary cafes are called common ground, just like some of their permanent cafes. Sometimes they'll play live music and do their circle dancing. Sometimes they'll go somewhere in town and just dance to their own recorded music. The goal is to show themselves happy and in unity, impress people, chat with people, pass on their pamphlets, invite someone to their Friday night celebrations, or to come back with them that day to stay at their place. They particularly target young people, couples, families, but many people have been attracted and joined who are middle-aged and above. If someone is particularly zealous, skilled, or wealthy, the leaders would say they are big fish. They like to go after engaged Christians who are dissatisfied. Always trying to make a very lively, friendly, and harmless impression, they will befriend you and show themselves interested in listening to you. They will give you a pamphlet targeted for you specifically. In many of their publications, they appeal to the hippie or hippie wannabe. They even have a hippie bus which tours different concerts around the US. They have produced many different publications directed to Christians, such as The Black Box, Others would appeal more to New Agers and alternative people. Definitely the pamphlets we were given made a huge impression on us at many levels. The picture at the front of a Brotherhood of Men we were given had many happy faces. A Place to Belong had happy people dancing at what seemed to be a festival with teepees at the back, to which a crowd was gathering and coming up to the dancers, one of them holding a tambourine, and it started something like this. There is a people who woke up this morning with something foremost on their heart, to serve their Creator and one another with all of their heart, all of their strength, all of their mind. The little card had a handmade little map with a goose next to the Peppercorn Creek Farm location, and it extended a warm welcome. The billy is always on the pot fire. Many things got our attention, interest, and even got us excited. The fact they lived communally was a great attraction, as Mark and I had already been considering being part of an intentional community, and even had visited a few. We agreed with the condemnation of mainstream Christianity, and their claim to live like the first disciples was something worth checking out. We felt we had to see for ourselves if that was all really how they presented it. Our first Friday night was magic. We found ourselves immersed in what seemed to be a radically different culture. An unseen blend of hippie and Israeli culture. They seemed to express themselves freely. A very friendly New Zealander, my husband is a Kiwi too, was our host for the night and engaged us in an interesting conversation and started telling us all about their philosophy of life and what held them together as a group. His enthusiasm was contagious. Certain people are picked to be evangelists, as they call them, and they are always the friendliest of people. As they always do, they urge you to stay longer. You can't miss the celebration. There are a lot of children's dances. Yeah, and the day after, Sunday, we are going to be at the Glebe Festival and play live music. And so we stayed on Saturday as well, and on Sunday we went back to our apartment in Sydney and headed for Glebe. They had a cafe there with their lovely food and a whole band playing. The band comprised of some older members and a few second-generation young adults from the USA. The fact that another generation was taking on their beliefs and were totally part of them made a huge impression on us. We were invited to join in the circle dancing. This beautiful summer afternoon, one of the leaders there told us, smiling, how he felt like we were his long-lost brother and sister, and he was looking forward to spend the rest of his life with us, and that our children will marry each other. Talking about love bombing, this guy literally didn't even know us 3 days ago. The good news, they told me, God created everything. He made man and woman to be his friends and be caretakers of the earth, the animals, nature. God has infinite wisdom, unconditional love. Well, unconditional love within a certain framework of reference which has clear limits and conditions. But look, let's keep it simple for you now, my dear guest. Unconditional love. He provided a remedy for you to come back to be in communion with him through his own Son. You can be forgiven for all your sins. If you join, you will receive 100 times more of everything you gave up. If you join, you will live for God, and God doesn't want robots. Your free will be untouched. You will have ultimate responsibility for your life and will act out whatever is on your heart out of your own volition. Also, you will have ultimately the responsibility of your family, and their role will be just to support your parental authority. You are surrounded by a family who will help you and support you, which you will also love and support in return. You will be able to love your extended family all the more. Bad news. The whole world is under the dominion of Satan. Why? Satan was called Lucifer, one of the chief angels. He exalted in his pride and decided to try and usurp God's position in the universe. The first couple disobeyed God, their creator, and allowed Satan to influence the human race forever. Woman was first to fall, and you are a woman. Your poor choices have earned you an eternal life in hell. You have to give up everything to bring about God's reign on the earth. Your opinions and beliefs, your car, your land, your dreams, careers, worldly pursuits, your money. And lastly, also, that to enter the kingdom is very hard for a lot of people. It's all about the good news and the bad news. I relaxed and thought, well, These people are not just trying to be nice to me, they're telling me the bad news as well as the good news. And the bad news sounded so bad, I couldn't actually conceive of worse news or more bad news. Well, what I can say is after spending 13 years with them, I had totally underestimated them. When you get baptized, it is not the end of bad news. But no, it's the beginning. There is never a shortage of bad news with those guys. But for now they keep it very simple and only tell you certain things. They mainly talk about the unconditional love that God has for mankind and how He wants to be your friend, and of course, how wonderful is our life. What is mind control and what's it like to be under mind control? First, the before and after shots. What was it like for me really? You take an individual like me who was free, was able to manage my own life, make my own decisions, think broadly, use my imagination, had love and respect for myself and others, happy and with a bright outlook on life, and you turn that person into a willing slave who can't think for herself, depressed of spirit, critical of herself and others, with a catastrophic view of the world, sacrificing all her God-given gifts and everything she knew to be valuable in exchange for some man's elusive dream. You see a person going against their own conscience and living a deceitful, harmful existence. The end result of being under mind control I would compare to a chronic pathological condition. Just like that kind of condition can't be attributed to just one factor, but to the combination of, say, hereditary predisposition, lifestyle and environment. Likewise, the state of being under mind control is not the result of just one factor. The controlling environment, people and doctrine combine and have a synergetic effect on the recruit and then the member. And I will try and show you the nuts and bolts, and you'll see how it was done with me. I will explain the tools of influence and coercive techniques commonly used to recruit people and to keep them in cults. For that purpose I will refer to the Lifton's 8 criteria for thought reform, as found in his book Thought Reform and the Psychology of Totalism. In the late 50s, Lifton studied American and European prisoners of war that had been subjected to thought reform programs by the Chinese in brainwashing prisons for typically 3 years, and he charted the mind control environment and methods these people had been subjected to in 8 particular themes. In the 60s, so many cults were flourishing, and friends and families were despairing to understand what on earth was happening to their loved ones. They found the work of Lifton, and in particular his 8 criteria, to shed a bright light, and still do. Those criteria can also be referred to by anyone trying to determine if a given organization or group is indeed a cult. So what was that hook that came with the bait? The hook are the things you are not aware are being done to you, and just like with the hook, it can happen very fast. When it comes to cults, I was a dumb fish. I had no idea there were cults all around me. Somehow I had managed to escape getting caught in a few different ones. I have counted 6, the number of them I came in contact with before the TT, but I had no idea. At this point in time, my only reference point regarding cults was the massacre in Jonestown, Guyana, of hundreds of members and their crazy leader Jim Jones. I thought that surely see the signs of such obviously fanatical and violent cult. And if a fish doesn't know of the dangers of fishermen, well, that fish is a dead fish. And I have identified my personal vulnerabilities. Number 1, my ignorance of cults. Then my idealistic approach to life, the difficult times the world is experiencing, me being generally trusting of people, me wanting to believe there is a creator. But one thing for sure, no Mark nor I were looking for someone to control our lives, nor for some organization that would do all the thinking for us. I put my ignorance of cults in first position because have I had known what they are and what to watch out for, I wouldn't have fallen for it, full stop. They wouldn't have been able to disarm me and persuade me. I would have been aware of their weapons of influence.